I wanted the children to be exposed to new things, to new techniques. My journey as an artist is a very meandering one. So my philosophy is actually also developed along this journey. Actually, I studied art history and I was writing texts on art. But at some point I started to make work with my hands, and then I realized that actually this is my calling. As you move, you encounter things, all these things can become material for work. It's a mixing of materials because I use a lot of found material. It's actually this encounter with things that are happening around you, maybe sometimes in your own life, but sometimes socio-political sphere, which kind of affects you. And then you encounter an object like the thermocol packing, and then it all comes together to create a work. I found about 10-15 of these thermocol packing, which exactly looked like bombed buildings. Then what I did is I brought them into the studio, I covered them with bandage, almost like I actually bandaged abandoned, destroyed house. I laid them on sheets of glass which are suspended from the ceiling, and just below the building on the sheet of glass is a light which is either the police light or an ambulance light. So either a blue colored light or a red colored light, and the ones that revolve. And so the whole installation was such that there were planes of glass in a room at different angles, which means it's all about destruction and just being thrown into chaos in one moment if something falls in your house, like a bomb falls on your house. The installation was such that there was a central bulb in the whole room, and after a minute it was on a timer, and the bulb went off and all these lights started to revolve. It's just the whole room becomes chaotic. In this workshop, I would like them to be open to two things: to newness, to change, and with the consciousness of the past, which is performance, which is photo montage, which is collage, which is using found objects, but making a very deep relationship to whatever they pick, and then trying to communicate through it whatever subject that they have in mind. So that was one thing. And I also wanted them to forge some kind of a relationship to the past, or some kind of an affection for it. They're so absorbed into technology, and they're so totally in this technological world that they perhaps don't have any relationship to in that sense, the past as fragments of history. So what I thought I would do with them was that I would expose them to contemporary art, which is of the art of now, and I would expose them to art of the past as artifacts of material culture through which you can sense a time that has gone away, the time that has passed.
She basically tried to get us to realize a connection between the past and the present. Anita Dubey had told us to create an artwork that not bridge the artworks of the past and the future, but just the concept of the past and the future.
Went to the National Gallery of Modern Art. There's a whole retrospective of Atul Dodia going on. And then we go to the National Museum.
We visited the National Museum, where we saw work from like really old work, and from all parts of India.
I went to Atul Dodia's workshop. I saw that shutters painted yellow, blackish and orangish color. So I thought, let's me do the tiger's face. It's like orange, black and yellowish color.
the methodology that I was using is a methodology of conversation or of a dialogue, that we are trying to talk about things, and in the process of talking, try to bring the children close to the works of art so that they become more and more receptive to these things. Engage them in a kind of a dialogue where they think that even if they're shy, that somewhere that structure allows them to participate. I actually introduced them to my work, and I started with early works of mine and to very recent works to bring people close to an artwork by showing you the processes through which it comes about, which means in one way to demystify the big aura that art can have.
I think I was inspired by the artist's work because she played a lot with words and typography, which really fascinated me, and I wanted to include that somehow into what I did.
The workshop was nice. In this, what I have done, like I have made a tiger and I have written a "Let's make tomorrow better." I copied her idea and changed into my ideas.
Observation, imagination and freedom of expression, and the free use of materials, free association with objects. Look, all this has played a very important part in my practice as an artist. And what more can I communicate to them? I ask them to be totally free to do actually anything.
She gave us a very wide area to work. She didn't have any restrictions as to what material we could use or what our idea behind our work would be.
I attend this workshop and I know how to deal with all these mediums like clay and acrylic paint, charcoals and soft oil pastels. That time I don't know how to deal with these.
We were basically told to make anything that we wanted to, inspired by what we had seen, using any medium.
This workshop has influenced the way I think. It has definitely helped me evolve. But more than that, I think working with different materials.
It was nice to see some people actually really using their imagination and trying to do things which were out of the box. This girl who actually made a face, half the face was a sketch of a girl and half the face was actually some words inside that face. So I thought that was really a strange kind of a joining together of two things into a single face. It's actually the presence of creativity.
Okay, so I used the word selkut, which means unfamiliar, rare, strange and yet marvelous. And I think my work shows a graphic representation of the meaning of the word itself, because here this is completely abstract. My work is basically that every individual is unique, and it's basically talking about individuality and how each one is unique and special in their own way.
We have tried to show how the past gives us nourishment, like the roots of a plant absorb minerals from the soil and water. That gives the seed of life. We grow as human beings and then we create a future. And with the repetition of the word now, I have tried to enforce that now is the time we can act and create a future.
I have used the sequin and the glitter and all the holes to show water, as if like you have water on a coral. So, and these stars I've used because I feel that this work is very abstract, and you wouldn't usually see stars on a coral, or you wouldn't usually see stars on a tree.
I thought the tigers are dying, so I made a tiger's face and color it with acrylic colors, and I put soft oil pastels on top of the acrylic colors, and I wrote some words around the tiger's face. Like the tigers are dying and there are only 1700 tigers in India, So I thought let's make a face of a tiger.
Exposure is a very, very terrific thing, because unless you are exposed to things, you'll never know. So it was really nice to kind of show them a range of things.
We saw sculptures, we saw paintings, we saw garage shutters which were painted. So we saw like a variety of work.
I think in each student, if you can leave behind one idea or one sensation vis-a-vis one work, that's more than what one can really do.
Throughout the workshop, what it's really taught me is to appreciate all kind of work. I think it's given me a sense of how hard it is to actually translate your thoughts into whatever sculpture or painting that you're about to make. It makes me want to use other mediums now to explore other things.
After this workshop, I worked with different materials and I worked with different artists, and they inspired me to work on my art.
When you have a good interaction with kids, all this information, all this what is being communicated over the course of this conversation will have some resonance sometime.